One of the very biggest problems I think we will see, especially in our generations over the next few years, is going to be cyber crisis. There's more cyber attacks. Now, is that something that's already taken place? Well, absolutely. Studies show that cybercrime will be a $10.5 trillion issue by 2025. When we put more of our life online, we are going to be open to more cyber attacks. Now, the question is, how safe are we personally? But then when you look as a whole, how safe is our government from the cyber attacks? Now, we've seen the Colonial Pipeline years ago with a cyber attack. We've seen a lot of infrastructure have cyber attacks. Well, the more we put online, the more our money goes online, the more virtually we live our life. How risky is a cyber attack? So let's jump into it today, the risk of a cyber attack and how it can affect us. And as we look in prepping, this is why I go back to, if you don't tangibly hold it, if you don't tangibly own it, is it really under your control and is it really yours? So let's jump into that today. I think it's going to be eye-opening, and hopefully this will be a good video to help you figure out what's best for you as a prepper, as a homesteader, as someone who tries to live sustainable. Let's jump into it. This video is going to be a go and it starts right now. Hey guys, welcome to the Max. Thank you so much for being here today. If you're new to the channel, go down here, press subscribe, ring the bell, give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. That's okay, but let us know what you think about this video. Our goal is that we try to talk about some of the hard issues so that way we can prepare and try to make sure our money is safe, make sure our goods are safe, and make sure we are ready for anything that comes our way. So today we're going to be talking about cyber attacks and the cyber dangers that we're in because we live a life so virtual. And also some of the risks that we will put ourselves in just because we like the convenience of being virtual and doing things online all the time. So let's talk about the risk of some of those things, but also what I think we should be doing to make sure that we are ready just in case. There has been recent studies to show that cybercrime and cyber attacks on personal and on business and nationwide are up around 80%. I think it's around 79% year over year. Now that could be very dangerous, especially because everything in our life now is digital. We think if you go to the doctor, how many times have they said, well, your records are now digitized? We make it a little bit easier for us to find. It's convenience. Same way with our financial institutions. How many times do we look at our phones or look at our computers and find out every aspect of our financial representation about us? We don't have to call anyone. We don't have to wait on statements. We do it all digital. Think about, again, you're watching me digitize, and there's good benefits to technology, but what I am saying is everything is wrapped up technological. We even order and buy more online than we ever have, especially since 2020. Our whole life has been consumed very much on the digital platforms. Is that a bad thing? No. I think convenience is good, but remember, as a prepper, as someone who tries to live sustainable, we can't allow our whole life to become one big digital footprint, and making sure we're not just one big algorithm for everyone to figure out every piece of information about us. I think it goes back to that saying of, if you don't tangibly have it, you may not tangibly own it. You may not have it in your possession, then it's not really yours. I think those things really come into effect when we talk about maybe having a cyber attack. Putin said of Russia a few years ago, World War III won't be traditionally on a battlefield. It's probably going to be done with ones and zeros. So what does that mean? That means the world is becoming more technologically smart, so therefore there's going to be some risk that we will all assume. Now, the scary thing is not only humans getting smarter and they're learning how to manipulate technology and we've become one big algorithm, you're seeing AI. And AI is going to be a major downfall. I know people want it for convenience because we've become a lazy, lackadaisical populace for most of the world, to where we want everything right now, microwave ready, it's all there at our fingertips. And again, some of those things are good, but I believe we're going to start seeing our security and our freedoms be taken away because we are allowing AI to be more of our life, and we're allowing everything we do to be digital. Why do I say it's going to be a danger? Because there's always going to be someone smarter who is going to be able to hack. There's always going to be someone who can program a biases inside the AI generators to then manipulate what we are learning or hearing. AI has already taken over big parts of our life things like ChatGPT, there's more user on ChatGPT in a short amount of time than most social media platforms. So more people are wanting it. I don't think they understand the sacrifices they're making. And we wrap our whole life around technology, then when it's gone, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna be ready to face maybe some harder times? A few examples. You remember a few years ago, the Colonial Pipeline was shut down by some hackers. There was over 1,000 ships affected with ransomware just in the last few months. And again, we go back to AI. Not only are humans doing the hacking, what if all of a sudden someone programs AI to do it, and AI can start manipulating more and more and more of our data? So if all our financials, all our medical and health information, everything that we do is online, that means we're programmable. Everyone and everything will know every aspect of our life. Where we go, where we come from, our phones. Listen to this, in France, I read this on Epic Times. iPhone surveillance. Government can spy on you through your camera and microphone. Now, this is something that French leadership has done, of course, with everything going on over there. Now, the question is, how far is too far? We don't want government overthrows. We're not wanting anything like that. But how far is too far in the name of security? Should they be able to know everything and anything that's being done on your phones? Well, it's not just about government. Maybe it's the hackers again. Maybe it's AI. So the conversations you're having at your home, your privacy is now just as digitized and also more manipulated, just like your financials and health. As we talk about AI, ChatGPT, 100,000 accounts have been compromised and stolen off ChatGPT. So we hear about these breaches and all these attacks. Do you honestly believe your security and all the things you have digitally is safe? So if we know our pipelines, like the Colonial Pipeline, we know our grid is tied a lot to communications and the digital world. We know our phone systems now. For instance, we don't have landlines anymore. They use voice over IP, which is a telecommunications, almost like cell phones. So if we see all those things being put on that digital platform, how safe is it if all of a sudden we have a massive cyber attack? So now let's talk about what we're doing. I know here at our home, what we've done to prepare for that, not only on the scale of financials, not only the scale of security, but just covering our bases, because I don't think you realize how much of the world revolves around a digital platform. Think of your groceries. How many times have you went to the groceries, or even to eat, they wrote your order down or they took your ticket based on them writing it in? No, it's on a computer, it's on an inventory list. If all that's crashing, how do we even know how to buy groceries anymore? How do we even know how to order online anymore? How do we even know how to add and subtract, because so many people depend on our phones to do all that for us? It'd be a real ordeal. So let's talk about a little list of things that I'm making sure that we have at our home to prepare for that, because if something like that happens, it's going to put us almost in a Stone Age situation where we're going to look like the Flintstones and no one's going to know what to do. So number one, I think you need some cash on hand. Now, we talk about cash a lot in our videos, and we talk about barter, and we talk about building a society parallel to the one we have, just in case. But think about it. If we depend on our credit cards or our debit cards or any form of payment, even off our phones, if we want that to work, then we need the security there. Well, if all of a sudden we've had some kind of cyber issue, what's the only way that people are going to be able to pay for goods anymore? Well, it's cash, or it's a form of currency such as precious metals, bartering goods. We made a video on bartering just the other day. So if we talk about it, that's how we pay people in a situation where we have a cyber issue or we have a digital compromise, then most people are not buying those things. Less than 1% of people are starting to put up gold and silver. A lot of people don't pay with cash for anything. Now, I have seen a study where the Gen Zers are starting to rely back on cash because it helps them save a little money. So I hope that's a positive thing. I hope people will go back to cash, because if we go back to cash, that will help us not push towards a more digital platform like CBDC. But we're seeing the movement towards cryptos and all that. I have no problem. Again, we've talked about this in other videos. Cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, it may be a great way to put your money, but how safe is your money? It's a speculative way of putting your money up. Now, yes, I have some Bitcoin. I even have some on other cryptos, but it is just simply out of sight, out of mind. If it goes away tomorrow, it's so minute, I haven't lost my whole income. Stock market shut down, or ways to access it, or the banks have issues with cyber attacks. all my money's not there. We have to make sure that we have some money back at home. We have to make sure we have some of those tangible assets here, because that's what matters. So cash, I've been putting a lot of cash here, been putting a lot of gold here, been putting a lot of barter and goods here. Now that's not just at my home, because that could be very unsafe. They're in places that I can tangibly get to them really quickly. So with the cyber attack, how dangerous it could be, you have to have a form of currency or a form of money at your home at all times. Did you know that our water is ran pretty much by computers and digitized technology? Things like our treatment plants, things like sewage and how it pumps out of your homes if you're on a city sewer or some kind of community system. All those things are ran by a lot of our electronics that is ran technological. Again, great innovations, but if all of a sudden our water that we're hoping when we turn the faucet on it comes out, can we trust that? So we've been putting up a lot of water. Now, you know, we have right across over here, I can't show you because the hay barn's kind of in the way, but you know, we have a lake, we have a creek. That's good. We have a well, but guess what? That well runs off the grid, so therefore we have a hand pump. Do you see how we did that? We wanted to make sure not only do we have water that we can boil at a pond, not only do we have a creek that we could turn around and maybe get fresh water out of, we have a deep water well that not only can we pump it out with a generator, we have a hand pump to it. Water is a big deal. It's the end-all be-all to our health, and we can go a long time without food. We can go a long time being poor and not having money, but we can't go without water. We don't realize putting water up is very important when it comes to a cyber attack, because it can affect the way water gets to you. Water, instead of being a natural right, we're starting to see it as a commodity, which is dangerous. That means more and more people are in control of it. We have a great video on water coming out in the next few days. I think you need to watch it, because I think it's going to show you how unsafe is our water. Not health-wise, can we always access water without having a major premium to pay for it? So if you're in those areas where water's already sparse and you don't have a well, or you don't have a free-flowing creek or a pond of some sort where you could boil the water, if you're dependent on that faucet to come on, then you need to start buying water containers and putting water in them. Now, we've talked other videos. Yes, you can buy bottled water. Yes, you can go to Walmart and spend money and buy the 3 gallons, the 5-gallon buckets. Those are all great. But why don't we look at something a little bit more permanent, something that will last a little bit longer? You could go to there's a Legacy link below, and there's tons of other places that you can buy them, but we buy those stackable bricks. They're called bricks, and we put a lot of water in there. Now, I just told you I have tons of access to water, but even me, I'm still doing the same thing. I'm storing water. I'm also catching water off this barn here in a rainwater catchment system, because I want to make sure that water, no matter what I do, I have to have water. So with a cyber attack on something like the grid, will your water be flowing? So you need to make sure you're stockpiling some water for safety. So far we've talked about not depending on digitized money. We've talked about not depending on your water always being there when you turn the spigots on. Now, you know, in any situation like this, food will be crazy and groceries will be crazy. People won't be able to access grocery stores. I think you're going to see a lot of stealing and theft, because in most catastrophic situations, we see that in our bigger cities. Well, our bigger cities are always hit harder on these kind of threats and these kind of cyber issues that we may see. So therefore, again, we go back to stockpiling food. Now, this is where I go and say, okay, yes, grow gardens. Yes, make sure that you have seeds. Yes, make sure you are putting up your own food. But then I push you a little bit further, saying you've got to buy some freeze-dried foods. Now, we have a freeze dryer. If you have a freeze dryer, you're blessed. You can start freeze-drying your own foods. If you have a canner, you can start canning your own foods. Absolutely. But you need to make sure you are putting them up in food-grade buckets, sealed, away from lights, in Mylar bags, and make sure you have stockpiles of that. Because if we all of a sudden open ourselves to always having to go out and get food, if we open ourselves to always waiting on rain to happen, and remember, we're stockpiling water, we don't have access to water all the time, we may not can water our gardens, we need to already have that food ready. So I would challenge you, again, look at some of these companies that provide you freeze-dried foods. Now, don't look for the ones that are just carb heavy and sodium heavy and sugar rich. That's not what I'm talking about. There are tons of freeze-dried companies that provide you food that is simply non-GMO and natural, a little bit more organic in a lot of their product, other than just junk food. We don't need junk food and empty calories. We need good quality food. So you need to make sure you have that food and water real close together. If you depend on running to the grocery every week, you are doing that wrong. You need to have weekly and monthly meal plans, and you need to stock up on Going to the grocery, you don't need to fall back and go into saying, okay, I've got to go pick up some toilet paper today, or I've got to go pick up meat for tonight. Because if you get into that way where you're always dependent on running to the grocery or running to Walmart or running to this big box store every time you need one little thing, then you're not prepared to say, okay, if something bad happens, I'm going to be held out here with nothing, and I'm going to put myself in a very dangerous spot when I have to go into a store with theft and thievery going on, and maybe they want something you have and you're putting yourself in a very precarious situation. So you've got to learn to hunker down and make sure you have that food and water. So you have to have another form of communication. So if our phones have been compromised, or the ways that we do, like I said, landline phones are almost a thing of the past now, especially in our area. They're using voice over IP. They're using satellite style or communication style off towers, 4G, 5G, which I don't like. But what I'm saying is that's how a lot of landlines are. So you got to bypass all that, because if that's compromised, if those ways are compromised, or they're manipulated where you can't utilize them, or they're watching you or listening to you, you've got to say, okay, I don't need that anymore. Why don't we look at a CB? Why don't we look at a ham radio and learn how to use a ham radio? Why don't we use some other form of communication? Now, this is one of those things that I've told my family and told the people that are near and dear to me, okay, if something were to happen, this is where we're going to meet. Those communications have already been instilled to them, because I know if something were to happen, this is where we're going to go. This is what we're going to do. If this point of meetup is not here, then we're going to be at this point of meetup, because we have to understand that communication may be hindered at that point, or it may be manipulated to where it still works, but then everyone's going to know where you're at all times. That can be very dangerous. So you have to find a different form of communication. Walkie-talkies, CBs, ham radios. Those are the best purchases you can make. None of those are very expensive, but you need to start looking at ways that you can use a different frequency, different radio waves, kind of go back in time and start using some of those things to get some of that information to each other. Also, there may be code words and more of a, not really different language, but a different way of talking that will help whomever's on the other side to know what you're trying to say without actually saying it. Isn't that unique? And I feel like we're going back to like when we're playing kids in the woods and we're playing all these survival games like paintball or something like that, like I used to play. But I'm being serious. When it comes to those kind of scenarios, you need to have a different way of communication. Some of that may be keywords and ways to talking. It may be communication such as different radio waves or things like CBs, ham radios, and walkie-talkies. I think you've got to invest in that. Put it up for safety, because when all of a sudden when your phone is compromised or not working, you have another way to communicate. You already have those points of meetup already established. So lastly, let's talk about a few more things just to wrap up. Do you have your documents? Do you have all the things that are important to you? Maybe wills, estates, maybe life insurances, maybe a cold wallet that does have Bitcoin, maybe a USB that does have information. Are you backing up your system, your financials, on some kind of USB every other day or every night? Those are things that you should be doing, making sure that if everything's digitized that you own, that you need to have a fail-safe to where all that stuff will not be taken away. You can check it pretty regularly, but also that all those things are backed up on some kind of external hard drive where you can remove it from the system that could be compromised and put it up safe. So for instance, any and everything that we have in written documentation. So anything like my documents that are very, very important when it comes to legal documents or end of life documents or insurance documents or financial documents, I have all those in written form, even down to our birth certificates, our social security cards. We don't put any of that in a digitized form because it can be compromised. So we keep all that together in a pouch that is in a waterproof safe at all times. That's not typically with our other documents and with our other safes. It is in a safe, secure location. We have a cold wallet that we can store Bitcoin or crypto on, because if you do have it, you need to be able to get it off any exchange if you still have it. Also, we have a USB that has that same information, things that deal with our financial institutions, our bank statements, things that automatically come to us digitally. I can be able to pull some of that information off. That way I can check it and know it's always safe, or at least I can see the problem with it when it does change from what the USB is telling me, what the hard drive is telling me. So we keep all those things on external hard drives or on cold wallets or in true document forms, because again, if we put all that digitally, what if all of a sudden you have all that stuff uploaded on an Excel document or uploaded on some kind of cloud device online? Well, if all of a sudden those things are hacked and you can't get to them, what are you going to do? You know nothing. Do you know your children's social security numbers? Are they all here. I had a gentleman the other day told me he has a password keeper on his phone, and I'm not against that, but he had everything personally on his phone at all times. And I'm thinking, they know your health information, they know your children's information, they know your children's health information, they know everything about you, all your financial numbers, all your bank accounts. That's dangerous. Don't put all that on your devices for it to be hacked. So we need to be smart and make sure that we go back to old school way, maybe have a legal pad and inventory a lot of those things and put them in a safe spot just in case something were to happen. So therefore everything's not going to be compromised if a cyber attack happens. We talked about a lot, but it always goes back to, what do you have tangibly on you? Technology is good, but don't put all your eggs in that technological basket. Let's look at things, what we call the Stone Age, where we go back and we start writing some of those notes and inventories. Let's start keeping that cash and that gold on hand. Let's start making sure the bartering things that we have in excess, so we can utilize those things, but also we can barter to our neighbors with forms of payment just in case they need something or we need something. We are now bartering in a bartering relationship and building our own parallel economy. Something bad happens, like a major cyber attack, even if it's regional, it will affect the way that you get gas, it will affect the way that you get water, it'll affect the way that you live on grid, it will affect the way that you transact with finances, it will affect everything, because everything we own now is so technologically tied. So I always tend to say, prepare like your grandmothers and great-grandmothers probably prepared, and your grandfathers and great-grandfathers prepared. Think about what people did in the early years, the Depression years. How did they keep their family safe? Well, skills, bartering, having some kind of form of tangible cash, if they had it, or tangible silver or tangible gold, but they had the goods like water and food. They had their land that they could raise on. They prepared by learning skills to get them through those tough times. Same way I would say how to prepare for a cyber attack. Go back and live like you never had technology, and then I think we would be more prepared. Can you light a fire? Can you put up a tent? Do you even own a tent? Do you even own something to light a fire other than just matches? Do you own a ferro rod? That matters. Start thinking outside the box and saying, okay, if all of a sudden I woke up and my phone did not work and I had no phone access, no internet access for the day, could I make it? To me, that's a little crazy because I don't depend on my phone like some people do. However, there's so many people that are so tied to their social media and their internet base, and even their jobs are even tied technologically, that they probably wouldn't even know how to function. So it would cause pandemonium. We don't want that, and we don't want to live with that, and we don't want to be in that. So anytime and every time we talk about preparing, it's preparing your home, preparing what you have, preparing to bug in, hunker down, and know that you can make it through. So guys, I hope this video helped. I just want you to think outside the box. Cyber attacks are happening more and more, and they're saying again, it will be $10 trillion business by 2025. That's bigger than most world economies other than the big major players. So don't think that you're always safe, and don't think that your money, all your financial institutions, all your technology is safe, because it can be manipulated like anything else. Take care of yourself, keep some things at home, have some cash on hand, have some precious metals, some bartering items, have those radios, have some things that could get you by, water, food, and making sure that you're taking care of your family. Thank you so much for watching. God bless. Happy homesteading, y'all.